Madame Carambeau wanted it strictly understood that she was not to be disturbed by Gustave's birthday party. They carried her big rocking chair from the back gallery that looked out upon the garden where the children were going to play, around to the front gallery, which closely faced the green levee bank and the Mississippi, coursing almost flush with the top of it. The house, an old Spanish one, broad, low, and completely encircled by a wide gallery, was far down in the French quarter of New Orleans. It stood upon a square of ground that was covered thick with a semi-tropical growth of plants and flowers. An impenetrable board fence, edged with a formidable row of iron spikes, shielded the garden from the prying glances of the occasional passer-by. Madame Carambeau's widowed daughter, Madame Cécile Lalande, lived with her. This annual party given to her little son Gustave was the one defiant act of Madame Lalande's existence. She persisted in it to her own astonishment and the wonder of those who knew her and her mother. For old Madame Carambeau was a woman of many prejudices, so many, in fact, that it would be difficult to name them all. She detested dogs, cats, organ grinders, white servants, and children's noises. She despised Americans, Germans, and all people of a different faith from her own. Anything not French had, in her opinion, little right to existence. She had not spoken to her son Henri for 10 years because he had married an American girl from Prytania Street. She would not permit green tea to be introduced into her house, and those who could not or would not drink coffee might drink tisane of fleur de laurier for all she cared. Nevertheless, the children seemed to be having it all their own way that day, and the organ grinders were let loose. Old Madame, in her retired corner, could hear the screams, the laughter, and the music far more distinctly than she liked. She rocked herself noisily and hummed Partant pour la souris. She was straight and slender. Her hair was white, and she wore it in puffs on the temples. Her skin was fair, and her eyes blue and cold. Suddenly, she became aware that footsteps were approaching and threatening to invade her privacy. Not only footsteps, but screams. Then, two little children, one in hot pursuit of the other, darted wildly around the corner near which she sat. The child in advance, a pretty little girl, sprang excitedly into Madame Carambeau's lap and threw her arms convulsively around the old lady's neck. Her companion lightly struck her a last tag and ran laughing gleefully away. The most natural thing for the child to do then would have been to wriggle down from Madame's lap, without a thank you or a by your leave after the manner of small and thoughtless children. But she did not do this. She stayed there, panting and fluttering like a frightened bird. Madame was greatly annoyed. She moved as if to put the child away from her, and scolded her sharply for being boisterous and rude. The little one, who did not understand French, was not disturbed by the reprimand, and stayed on in Madame's lap. She rested her plump little cheek that was hot and flushed against the soft white linen of the old lady's gown. Her cheek was very hot and very flushed. It was dry, too, and so were her hands. The child's breathing was quick and irregular. Madame was not long in detecting these signs of disturbance. Though she was a creature of prejudice, she was nevertheless a skillful and accomplished nurse, and a connoisseur in all matters pertaining to health. She prided herself upon this talent, and never lost an opportunity of exercising it. She would have treated an organ grinder with tender consideration if one had presented himself in the character of an invalid. Madame's manner toward the little one changed immediately. Her arms and her lap were at once adjusted so as to become the most comfortable of resting places. She rocked very gently to and fro. She fanned the child softly with her palm leaf fan, and sang Partant pour la souris in a low and agreeable tone. The child was perfectly content to lie still and prattle a little in that language which Madame thought hideous. But the brown eyes were soon swimming in drowsiness, and the little body grew heavy with sleep in Madame's clasp. When the little girl slept, Madame Carambeau arose, and treading carefully and deliberately, entered her room that opened near at hand upon the gallery. The room was large, airy, and inviting, with its cool matting upon the floor and its heavy old polished mahogany furniture. Madame